black gum.
Yep. Yeah. You can see the browse line pretty clear.
Wow. You think they like that black gum? It's still alive.
You know, like candy.
Yeah.
Like chocolate candy. How is it to hunt from that thing?
It's good because I can see the whole entire thing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's gotta be slick.
And,
You cut out these branches here?
and so I can see behind that little.
You can see down under the top of the ridge.
Well, and what I've done this year is I've brought a dozer trail out over here at about 20, a little over 20 yards, probably 25 yards over, because, so that's another interesting thing to talk about, right? I do my best when I come out and do my hinge cutting because I know where they naturally want to live and travel typically, right? And I do my best at it, but I couldn't be wrong, and sometimes I am, right? Well, then what you see at year 3 is you're walking around, and there's this big trail here, but it's been pinched down because of all your cutting, right?
Yes.
It just makes it way more visual because a deer walking through a wide open timber trying to find food, most times they're browsing. They're not going to be on a trail. They're just browsing their way through there. It's hard to see that sign unless you're really good, right? But on this here, the thicker we get it, the more they're going to show us what they want.
Right.
If we were wrong,
Wherever
now,
they're moving regularly, you're going to see it browse back.
and then we're going to copy that,
Yeah.
right? Then there ain't a man out there that's going to do a plan better than that plan right. The deer showed you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And so, unless it's hurting my hunting, and if it's hurting my hunting, one, I'm going to get more cover to where I can get in there better, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you want to take away, you know, we always talk about adding things to a property. You want to take away things that detract from it.
Yeah.
So I found a beautiful, perfect buck bed in a stand of willows, thick willows.
Yep.
And there he's got 2 or 3 spots he's laying in there. And it's right along my trail walking back to my stand.
Yep.
So I did a video. I went in there and I destroyed it. Made it uncomfortable for him. Cut down willow trees and just scattered them around. So I'm not going to get busted by him.
Well, and he has a place on the property that you've already made better than
right
that.
on the other side of the hill. Yep.
Yep.
40 yards away up the hill, and the other side he can stay there all he wants.
Yep.
So I have a 5-star hotel over there.
Yeah.
But
Right.
he's made his own 5-star hotel in that thicket.
Right. And you're going to have that naturally happen sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we normally like that.
Well, he's right next to a CRP field that he can walk, but that's the only way that I can walk back to my stand. So
Yep.
I win in that case. He doesn't get that spot. I take it away from him.
So originally I was going to enter this box blind by this ditch behind it, and that ditch goes all the way out to that main hub, and then my truck's right at the top of the hill, right? Well, after that first year of being here, most of my deer either had bed in that the place that was naturally thick over there to begin with, or on these terrain features here, because the terrain features are what they want, right?
Yeah.
And so me coming up through here was a big no-no,
At
right?
that point.
Right, at that point. And so now what I'm doing is going to move this 100 and some yards over to that corner to where I can still see 2/3 of this field.
But you can enter from there.
Yeah. The way shorter. And we know they're going to start bedding in there. I mean,
Is there a road there that you enter from? Or?
well, I'm going to come up that other property line, and then we didn't come in that way, but I have a walk-in trail on one of those narrow ridges. It's not hardly cut. That comes up to that corner right there. On the back side of the cover. It's, again, a lot of these stands are deeper into the property than what I'm going to have them in the future, right? As I keep developing places that I can get to easy.
You just don't see anything like this.
I know.
No.
This is so unique.
Well, in the properties that you go to, they have
clover everywhere in here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm just going to keep frost eating it, right? Because it'll keep jumping before this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, this is warm season annuals and warm season perennials for the most part, what we're looking at here.
Yep.
Pollinators are. And so that cool season can get a jump on it, and that's what my clovers will do. And even rye. I put rye out here in front of this stand last year. This spring, it was up like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Heads on it.
So are you going to repeat seed in annuals or just keep the perennials going?
I'm going to keep throwing some clover, some red clover in it, but no, I'm going to keep it pretty
You'll
much
let
like
those annuals seed out if they want to.
Yeah. There's just enough density here right now. It's going to be hard to get much more diversity in here because it can't hardly get the sun to come in, right?
Well, and sometimes these fields migrate or evolve in a way that some species
Oh, for sure. So goldenrod's one of them that'll do that, and our grasses are another one, right? So when I go to a pollinator plot on people's land, what I'll see, if it's more than 3 to 4 years old, it's almost always cool season grass. It's all it's in.
Yeah.
And when you talk
you need to be hitting it early in the grass specific.
and I'm not using the plateau on the grass in this situation that I believe really helps me in other situations. So when I started that plateau, I went crazy on it because I'd heard from a...
Well, talk about plateau. What is it?
Okay. So I heard from one of the top deer biologists in the nation that plateau at 12 ounces to the acre was the answer for killing out cool season grass.
Initial CH?
Yeah. So I went out and bought unbelievable amount of plateau the first year, right? Thousands of dollars worth of plateau because it was a 9-month residual. And so if I was going to knock grasses out, you know, I didn't want them to be there the next year when I got there to have to do it again, right?
Yeah.
So I went with exactly what I was told without reading the label, right? 12 ounces to the acre, right? Well, I'll tell you what, it was the worst advice I ever got in the hunting industry because I took it to client's property after client's property and sprayed it and then had them call me back and say, hey, you killed my trees and my tree plants. Well, what are you talking about? This don't kill trees. Well, lo and behold, you read the label.
What is there, a surfactant in it? That does it?
No, I had a surfactant called Trophy Gold, but I'm telling you, it's a way tougher chemical than I imagined. I had bare
So you were reading the label and what you find?
No, I didn't read it to begin with.
But you did later.
I did later and realized I was told wrong, right?
Yeah.
You put down 12 ounces an acre, it's 48 months before you put brass in it.
Oh my goodness.
48 months, right? I mean, all that come in 2 of my plots that year, mare's tail and milkweed was all I had that made it through.
Well, you made life better for butterflies.
Yeah. Listen, people are buying milkweed seed. All you have to do is bare the soil and you'll get milkweed.
Right.
It's going to come in for free every time. Don't spend the money on milkweed because I get it everywhere, right?
Well, that's another pet peeve of mine along with, you know, the multiflora rose and the autumn olives is this thing about never kill a milkweed because you're killing butterflies when you do it. And I always ask people, well, do you have a lawn or are you growing milkweed in it?
Yeah.
Because you're telling a guy not to grow a food plot there because it has milkweed. So we all make choices. We have to have balance.
Yeah.
And you're going to kill some milkweed whenever possible. I let milkweeds go.
Yeah.
What the heck?
And there's a lot of different varieties of milkweed, but I'm telling you, if I spray Roundup, if I put plateau out, I'm getting milkweed. I had to do nothing else. But anyways, I had a half dozen clients. I had to go back and apologize.
You should put out a product to increase butterflies in North America. Put a label on it. Say this is butterfly enhancer.
Don't use it around brassicas.
Oh man.
So anyways, now what I am on the plateau is 5 ounces to the acre and 8 ounces of clethodim at the same time with the surfactant sticker, Trophy Gold, and that is beautiful.
So how'd you resolve things with your clients?
I went back to work for free.
Yeah.
When somebody calls me up and says, hey, you done this?
Yeah.
I say, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Right?
Good for you.
What else you do?
Yeah.
You can't do anything else.
Yeah.
And if that would have happened in my beginning of my business, they got the name that I had no clue and I killed out. So I sprayed their food plots and everything, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what I was told. 12 ounces an acre on alfalfa, 12 ounces an acre on clover, 12 ounces an acre. Yeah. No, it's like I said. So I had went to a habit.
So now I'm guessing that you decided that when you try a new thing, you're going to do it in a small area.
Well, I'm going to read the label.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's true.
A little bit of sense, right?
Yeah.
And because I respected the person enough that I thought, he's done this. He's a habitat guy. He knows, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's no way he had ever done that on anybody's plot before because he would have had the same results I had.
Yeah,
Right?
interesting.
But yeah, no, I get fired up thinking about that because that cost me a lot of time and money over that one deal, right? And what it is people telling you something that they've never practiced it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tried it. You know, it didn't tell everything. Maybe they mixed it wrong or something. I don't know.
No, I went
But you
to.
shouldn't be presenting to a group of people something that you're not absolutely sure about.
Well, when I went to one of the other guys' properties that was there at the same demonstration, and he done it on his property, and we had a habitat day there the next year, I said, he used plateau in this whole field. Look, there's nothing growing out here, right? And what he ended up saying, well, I sprayed these areas twice on accident. The reason nothing's growing. No, nothing's growing because you put out 12 ounces an acre. So anyways, this here, that trail, it 90s here, and it pops out right here. That camera, I pulled the card out the other day. It's not sending me pictures, so I had to pull the card out to check everything, and that's it's not pointed right. Yeah, you see the acorns starting to drop.
Yeah.
And I was able, like I mentioned, able to save some of these big trees because of that timber deal. And
again, these trees are producing acorns because they've got limbs reaching out. Yeah.
Lots of sunlight.
This is what an oak tree should look like if you want to produce acorns.
Well,
except it's better if it's all the way around.
Well, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, right? But the oak savanna, the state of Missouri has done more to study about habitat than any state I know.
I know. I see a lot of flyers from them about various things.
And the oak savanna, they determined that's it. That's your answer.
Yeah.
Right. So guys don't want to do it, but that's the answer. Right?
I had an oak savanna on my property in Addison, Michigan, a 47-acre property, and it was just stunning buck activity in when the acorns were dropping. These giant acorns, and every branch that was at the right height around those trees was dropping acorn. Or I mean, they dropped acorns, but also were buck scrapes.
So there's a guy, a big hunter, still abandoned. He worked with Hunter Specialty out of Iowa. He done some seminars, done one in Iowa City I went to, and I sat there and he killed a 200-inch deer. I said, why not? Well, I tried to do it. My problem was always I'd be in the timber, right? And I hear this tree dropping, so I take my climber stand over and hunt that. Well, time I got there, time off work or whatever, that tree over there's dropping and this one's done dropping. So I'd always just hop around trying to find the deer, right? And I was always either behind or I'd get one deer to come to the tree or maybe two. So how do you do it? It's like what you were saying. It's the big pasture oaks. It's the ones with the huge canopies on them, right? Because they drop for a longer period with more acorns, right? It's a healthier tree.
And they're hanging those branches down so that they can, put their scent on them and make a spray. I sat in that savanna. Actually, it was supposed to be a savanna that went through for about 300 or 400 yards. And on each end, there was a true savanna. Grassy areas with these big bushy oak trees growing in. In the center, we had straight trunk oak trees that had been invaded by maples. It was a swampy area. And so I went through and cut all the maple trees in there to create an oak savanna, and I had to cut down a bunch of oak trees too. That was several years ago. I haven't seen it since I sold the property, but I'll bet that is turning into a full savanna. And really the best experience with bucks in my life was sitting in one end of that savanna. 5 bucks come out in the evening following a doe, 1.5-year-olds, a 2.5-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and a 5.5-year-old. I mean, I don't know where he came from. I'd never seen him before, never had a picture, but there they all are right in front of me. I can't get a shot. I got my video camera, and I was so excited, it was just thrilling to be able to see that. And they fussed around for a while, and then the big guy followed the doe out across the field, but I got home and I hadn't hit the button on my camera.
I've done it.
So I have no documentation.
Of course.
Everybody's done that. Right?
But that was my very best, I think, experience, just seeing these bucks kind of in a crazy mood because she was probably ready to pop.
The other thing on oak savannas that naturally happens with those big canopied oaks is they shade out the spot right underneath them, right?
Yes.
And so what you end up with is another edge, right? A natural that you didn't have to do anything.
Right.
Right? And so they can get in
They
there.
can get in there and get at the acorns, and they've also got an edge, and they've also got the licking branches.
And security to do it all,
Absolutely.
safety.
Yep.
So there's many benefits to it.
Yep.
Oak savannas are the ultimate. Oak trees growing straight. It's such a sacred cow, you know? These big, tall, straight oak trees. You walk through and you say to a guy, you know, you need to cut about half of these trees. I'm not going to cut an oak tree.
Yeah.
I had my father-in-law lived on a property for about 40 years, and he had a place called the Walnut Swamp, and it was sacred. One time, I cut down a little teeny crooked walnut tree in it, and I caught hell for it. And I lived with that family for 30 years, you know, was part of the family, and he never allowed anybody to cut a walnut tree. Eventually, he died of cancer. It took him a couple of years. He's a wonderful man. But 2 years later, so his whole life he dreamed about those walnut trees producing a pot of gold. I tried to get loggers to come in and get them, and there just weren't enough trees to get to justify one truckload.
Right.
So there's nothing sacred about trees.
No.
If you want to grow walnut trees, you got to cut walnut trees. If you want to grow oak trees, you got to cut oak trees. If you want to grow acorns, you got to cut oak trees or other species. It's just, there's nothing sacred about any of it.
Well, and I know for sure 25% of the small properties that I work on don't have the volume of timber that a logger needs to come in typically, right?
Yeah.
And so whatever, they either sit there and wait for the rest of their life without any improvements, or they do something, right? And like you said, the momentum thing, I really like the way you talked about that, because momentum's the answer.
The act of doing something causes better things to happen.
And it keeps your mind working toward that and thinking about the whole
That's something I've
situation.
developed through my whole life and career. I found out that you got to get moving. You can't sit there and plan things forever.
Well, most of the business today are planned.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's step back into the timber here instead of walking through the weeds. We've all seen the field.
Yeah, both times we walk through this field, my eyes are going.
And it's tougher to walk the whole 9 yards, right?
Nice topography here.
Yeah, this is sweet for access. But you obviously, now you're changing your access.
Yeah, I thought that this was going to be a big answer. So straight down the ditch.
Yep.
But there's just way too much activity in here. The first year that I had that up on that stand, of course, with the leaves off, looking back in here, I was seeing way more deer in here than out in that picked bean field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so that's your answer, is to just move the stand.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm the guy that I'm not too scared to dig in deep necessarily, because again, I'm doing it in a way usually that's not blowing the property out. You know, I'm sneaking in, I'm taking my time. Just like we'd set up for an ambush back in the service or whatever. But,
So now, Jim, is this basically your buck sneak trail?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be on now?
Yeah. Buck sneak trail, there's always little bitty points sticking out like this, you know, where the does, and we're close enough to the field, the does want to bed in here.
Yeah. He wants to come along here
and he's feeling safe behind this cover. Yeah. So often what I do is I see the guys put their stand facing the field and don't look back in here at all.
Yeah.
And those bucks are on this trail, and this trail typically is where those leaning trees get to a straight tree, right? Because that's thicker over there, because those are leaning to the sun and the sun's getting in. Well, right here, usually the trees are growing straight. There's not as much sun in, so he can walk this back edge here. And so people are sitting in that stand looking that way. Yeah. And he's sitting here with them skylighted out there, blue sky, right? He's like, I don't think I'll go that way today. Right. So there's been many times I've seen the rub line come up and stop, right? I mean, they figure those things out. Again, the people are thinking it's been the marketing, right, that the deer are going to be out in the field where they put the clover or whatever they put out there, not back here where they live.
And where you can see a long way.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you know, in most of those conditions where a person's doing that, this is going to be so wide open they won't be in here either.
Yeah. No. But so again, you kind of see, I can see from the blind all the way down this here shooting lane, right?
Yeah, great rifle shot, huh?
Another big white oak, lots of canopy, big crown.
But yeah, it's funny when you first hinge cut a property. You know, I don't know how many hinge cut trees are in here, but now look, this many years later, you can't hardly see the hinge cut trees. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You go from something that a lot of people look at and they're like, "Ooh, I don't really like that look," but then in a couple of years, it's just thick, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't want to mess my woods up like that.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah, yeah. I'll take the deer over here. And not everybody wants it, but I mean, if you look up through the woods, you can see what I've left is those straight trees. Most of them don't have many bottom limbs on them. You know, I mean, they're a species that's going to make it for money. I got some sassafras that I've left around, but I'm going to use those for a picket fence one of these days.
Oh, are you?
Right? Yeah.
At home?
No.
Here?
Well, I don't know where.
Okay.
I've left. It's scary how things have changed in price, and it's everything, right?
Everything.
My alfalfa seed, my barbed wire, it's everything. It ain't just a few things, right? But along with that, if a guy had some land at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Most of the land went up $1,000 an acre.
Yeah.
You know, and so I started thinking, well, why am I worried about an extra 20 on barbed wire when overnight the same thing happens?
And here's the thing: these kind of things like this inflation don't hurt people that already are established in life. They hurt people that struggle to get to work and back home. With
No,
the
I
gas.
agree 100%, right?
It's a tax on the working poor.
Well, and the people that made it happen, they weren't worried about the
They don't
working
care.
poor.
Because they have an ideology, which is global warming. And if the gas prices are high, we'll use less gas. They don't care how that happens.
Yep.
I got a buddy I was in the Marine Corps with out in California. Right now, they're rolling blackouts, and they're saying not to charge your vehicle.
Right. Yeah.
Wait a minute, but they want to sell you one.
We're going to get to work when we have to do this by 2030, no matter what.
Well, you won't be going to work.
Right? Well, they don't need anybody to go to work because they'll just print more money, I guess. I don't know how it works.
It's far worse but you print money and you end up with inflation.
Oh, I know.
If you borrow money, you end up selling treasuries to China.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, you're screwing the American people with this stuff. So,
so this stand, we already walked by it from the other side earlier, and the truck's out here. We're going to go back down there. But again, you see I'm building a hub, right? I mean, it's always, and at the inside corner where deer naturally want to come out.
exactly.
Another spot where they naturally want to come into a field is a low area, right? So a low area or an inside corner almost always takes a stand site.